The Deputy City Clerk will open each public hearing, and anyone wishing to comment on the relevant matter may come to the podium at that time. After public hearings conclude, Speak to Council will begin. Speak to Council is a time for members of the public to comment on any and all matters relating to the city. Sign-ups for this session closed at 4:30 p.m. this afternoon. The list of speakers can be found at the back of the room and in the hallway. Speakers discussing legislation on this month's City Council agenda are placed on the A list. Speakers commenting on all other matters are placed on the B list. Under Council's rules, the Deputy City Clerk will call city residents first, as this is the Rochester City Council and we prioritize our citizens speaking to their elected representatives first. As a reminder, the Council is here to listen to all matters, and it is customary that we do not respond. So now let's begin this month's public hearings. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes for the public hearing portion, and the Deputy Clerk will lead us through each hearing. Deputy Clerk.
Pursuant to law, public hearing will now be had on the following matter: amending the official map relating to the Main Street Commons project, introductory number 314. Any persons desiring to speak in reference to said matter will now be heard.
Seeing no speakers, that hearing is now adjourned. So we'll now begin our Speak to Council session. All speakers will be given 2 minutes at the podium. We respectfully ask that each speaker offer Council the same respect they would expect to receive in return. In doing so, please refrain from profanity and other harmful language. Please note that this Speak to Council session is a time for members of the public to speak to the entire body, all of Council as a whole, not directly call out any individual members of City Council or City staff. In that vein, please do not direct any comments at any specific individuals on this body or in this room. Council members have contact information for all of tonight's speakers and may follow up on any concerns that pique their interest. Deputy City Clerk Birch White will call each speaker to the podium. We ask that you, again, respect the time of those waiting behind you and yield the podium at the end of your allotted 2 minutes. Deputy Clerk.
Albert Algarin, Barbara Jean Indovino,
Hello, good evening. I'm here to talk about to enforce the noise ordinance laws. Are you all aware that we do have a noise ordinance law in the city of Rochester? It goes from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. This is quiet time. There's not supposed to be any loud noises that disturb neighborhoods. For example, I'm going to give you some very specific examples. All hours of the day and night, well into the early morning hours, sometimes 1 a.m., 2 a.m., these loud car stereos are blasting. People are playing their music from their houses. The vibration shakes our houses, the windows. I can hear this through closed windows. I got the TV on. Okay, that's not good. And also fireworks. I don't know if you folks are aware that fireworks are against the law in New York State. They are indeed. And these are going off not just during the holiday, but well past midnight, sometimes 1 a.m., 2 a.m. in my neighborhood. And also, I'm not sure if there's anything you could do about those crazy whizzing motorbikes that has that annoying, loud, irritating whizzing noise. It goes on forever and ever. I don't know if there's anything you could do about that, but that's not good. Very disturbing to the neighborhood. And also what needs to be enforced are leash laws. I see people in my neighborhood walking dogs without the leash. Litter laws, big deal in Rochester with all the litter and trash. And also speeding. That's a very big problem, the speeding. What you folks have to do is get with the mayor's office, RPD, code enforcement, put PSAs out on TV, social media, wherever. Start enforcing these laws, give out warnings, tickets, and fines. Rochester, we deserve better, and we all can do better. People need to be held accountable for this bad behavior, And people also need to respect our laws and be considerate of others. Thank you.
Tammy Vinci. Tammy Vinci. Frederick Stoss. Marcus C. Williams. He'll be followed by Ezell Harris.
Good evening, City Council. Hey everybody, Marcus C. Williams here. I'm coming here to talk to you guys again. I could talk about the crime, I could talk about all of the criminals that you guys don't care about going to jail, or the fact that you guys don't support the police. But I'm not here for that tonight. I'm here for this surveillance stuff that keeps going on that everybody seems to be so concerned about, but nobody seems to really want to do anything. I've already submitted a small piece of legislation. I mean, it's a baby piece of legislation. It needs to be much more robust. But we can't even get that through. I'm trying to figure out what's going on with that. I hear that it's a corporate council, it's this, it's that, it's a third. It's a baby piece of legislation. It's barely 2 pages long. It does like very minimal. What are we doing here? Do we not care about our citizens' rights to privacy? Do we not think that it's a big bad issue? Half the people on here are Black American or some sort of melanated individuals, okay? Like the government surveillance isn't a problem for us, hasn't been a problem for us. We got a Jew on there, okay, talking about surveillance, like we need more surveillance, like that's gonna be a good thing, okay? We'll see what ends up happening. I don't understand why this isn't being addressed, okay? We've also got a Puerto Rican up there, okay? Like surveillance by the government has not been used against each of our groups, of ethnic groups. Like this is something that's extremely serious. Why is it being taken so lightly? Why is nothing being done? If you want a more robust piece of legislation, I got some of that too. But I'd love to even see this little mini piece of thing get somewhere through. Can we actually do something? People are out here talking about these flock cameras, these Exxon cameras. That isn't even the half of what's coming down the pipeline. This is just something very, very easy to start off with that we can start to push the needle back so it doesn't go so far. I'm glad we don't have a ton of the cameras here now, but people are pushing for cameras in the city now. Like it's not going to become an authoritarian state. Isn't everybody mad Trump's a dictator, all of this stuff, but we're okay with the state and other groups doing this? It's unacceptable.
Ezell Harris, to be followed by Sarah Shapley.
My legal name change is Ezell Trayvon Ezekiel. This is my last public appearance here ever. Rochester is my home. My parents moved here in 1953. 6 of my 9 siblings were born here, including me. My roots run deeply here. I have more than 150 relatives here, so I have a vested interest in this city and its future. I have spent decades advocating for this community. In 1992, I ran for city council. I got 10,000 votes. In 1993, I hosted a cable TV show called Rochester's Unsolved Murders. Public safety is a major reason why I have decided to leave. Residents should not have to accept shootings, homicides, illegal guns, open air drug markets in order to be a normal part of their life. I proposed a couple of months ago a permanent gun buyback program. Haven't heard anything from anyone. I've lost confidence in our city's leadership and ability to address the problems that we're having. I'm also concerned about the criminal justice system. This DA office that we have that's always plea bargaining. A 21-year-old killed a 64-year-old on Lexington Avenue in DWI. He only got 2 years. Life is cheap here in the city. Hank Brown was just killed recently on Union Street, and this guy who's a 3-time DWI only got like 5 to 7 years in prison, and he's here from another country. After serious consideration, I have decided to leave the city I call home for most part of my life. My parents came to Rochester in 1953 believing this city could offer a better future. More than 7 years later, I'm preparing to leave, and let me tell you, if I could dig up their graves, I would take them with me. My question to City Council is, how many more lifelong Rochesterians must reach the same conclusion before the cities recognize that we have a serious problem? Thank you, and I wish all of you the very best.
Sarah Shapley, Christopher Guzman. Christopher Guzman will be followed by Gina Walks.
Evening, City Council. My name is Christopher Guzman, and I represent Citywide Tenant Union of Rochester as campaign coordinator, and I'm here to speak about two things: housing justice and accountability. And frankly, there's a lack of both in the city of Rochester. Right now, at 919 South Clinton Avenue, there exists a building owned by Pathstone, Pinnacle Place. I'm sure y'all have heard about it already. If not, let me give you a rundown. As we had a meeting with State Assembler Harry Bronson last Tuesday, there was visible black mold growing in the ceiling of our meeting room. The floor was dirty with food, with a carpet that looks like it hasn't been washed in over 5 years. The garbage chute was backed up until the 10th floor. The smell was horrendous. There was no one on staff to dump the trash over the weekend. There was blood in one of the elevators from a stabbing 2 years ago. There were rodent problems, security issues, and not to mention the elevators. Elevators that, when faced with some of the highest temperatures in Rochester has ever experienced, broke down. Every single last one. Elevators that are the lifeblood of the building, as over 50% of folks living there are elderly or disabled or both. They had to sleep on the first floor or find shelter elsewhere because they couldn't get into their apartment. This is an injustice. This is dehumanizing. Imagine if your aunt, grandmother, grandfather, and so on suffering due to the Pathstones and incompetence due to their greed. I propose accountability. I propose the no repairs, no public funding bill, no public funds funding bill. It stops the public funding to developers and landlords who cannot keep up with their existing buildings. If landlords get public funds, then they should be willing and able to keep up their buildings up to code. This is a common sense piece of legislation that would help hundreds of Rochester tenants get housing justice. So please, City Council, let's bring accountability back to Rochester. Thank you.
Gina Walks. Gina Walks. Cynthia Robinson. Kevin McBride. Kevin McBride. Oh, wait, Kevin McBride is here.
Pinnacle Apartments in Rochester, New York had a total elevator outage starting July 2nd, 2026. When I first learned from WHAC that the Rochester Police Department was given an inquiry, I filed a FOIA request for a police crime report. When WHAC was told that a prior resident damaged the freight elevator, I filed a supplemental document with the Rochester City Law Department to assist with finding the crime report related to the damaged elevator. I then filed a FOIA request for the related fire department as well, and also described the May 16th scene from the view of the firefighters. On August the 4th, I got the expected redacted crime report from the Rochester City Law Department, and on the 5th, the entire fire department report. I decided to go to Rochester City Court on April 7th to get a certificate of disposition on the criminal case related to the May 16th elevator incident. My request was granted, and I was given a copy of the certificate with the official court seal on it. This ensures I have correct information of what happened May 16th. I look forward to reviewing any available police body cam footage of the May 16th elevator incident. This incident and how it made the elevator outage issue worse July 2nd is a clear example shows how much people with disabilities rely on elevators, and also their legal consequences for those who are found to be vandalizing elevators. Thank you.
Ames Grigg.
Good evening, council members. My name is Ames Grigg. I live at 407 Durnan Street, and tonight my ask is that the City Council send the Planning Commission's recommendation for the ZAP back to them for proper hearings. This is a really important piece of legislation. The zoning code is one of the most pervasive tools of segregation in America. Rochester is one of the most segregated cities in the country. Please keep that in mind as I lay this out. Rochester has specific laws for public participation in open meetings. Notification requirements are fixed. Yet the notification card, which should have arrived around May 5th, was received on June 4th. The comment period for this closed on June 5th. There was one day to read the 345-page text, do research, and send in a public comment. With 1 day's notice, only the most connected and resourced people were able to respond. Is this equity, inclusion, democracy? It's your turn to make this right. Will you join the history of inequity that this city is famous for? Will you set this right? The hearings must be rescheduled. The zoning department must be required to abide by the notification laws from this point forward. Anything less will amount to the city council's tacit approval. Please show the people of Rochester that equity and inclusion have a chance here. Let's not start the next 20 years of this zoning code off in service to segregation. That's all I got.
Lucy Newman. Lucy Newman will be followed by David All.
Hi. We live in a city where landlords from Florida rake in millions from hardworking people despite their absolute failure to maintain their buildings. You've heard the stories. Black mold, blood on the walls, broken elevators, blackouts that take a disabled person off their oxygen. No one should be forced to live in such dangerous and dirty conditions. Yet these wealthy landlords are perfectly happy to let people suffer. Tell me, how cruel do you have to be okay with making money off of this? These landlords refuse to perform the most basic responsibilities that come with being a landlord. They have dozens of open code violations and many buildings without occupancy certification. Yet, these landlords are rewarded for their negligence by being given subsidies and tax rates at our expense. When it comes to housing, we have a lot of work to do here in Rochester. Tonight, I'm asking you to stop giving public funds to landlords who refuse to do the absolute bare minimum of providing their residents safe and dignified places to live. Please take this basic step and stop allowing lazy, negligent landlords to freeload off of people suffering. Thank you.
David All.
Good evening. Since 1997, the Rochester City Code has required a certificate of occupancy for rental homes. I've been battling against this ordinance for over a quarter of a century. I've been prosecuted under it. City officers have obtained 2 search warrants against my house based on it. And last April, this council amended Section 9016A by removing the word rental, thus making the requirement apply to every house in the city, including each of your homes. Members of council, welcome to my world. I know under Section 9016C, in theory, owner-occupants can obtain an exemption, but how many of you have obtained an exemption? Yeah, neither has anybody else. You have? Excellent, I'm glad somebody has. But here's the important part. This ordinance has been challenged in court numerous times, and judges have found it to be supported by reasonable legislative standards. And what made it reasonable in the minds of judges? Why, the fact that until now, it never applied to the homes of judges, none of whom rent. But as of today, because you have removed the word rental, every single judge of Rochester City Court is currently violating this ordinance. How reasonable will they consider the ordinance to be when they are prosecuted under it? How reasonable will you consider it to be when you are prosecuted under it? But the pièce de résistance will be the first time that a city attorney applies to a Rochester City Court judge seeking a search warrant against the home of another Rochester City Court judge based on the allegation that that judge is violating the very same ordinance that the judge issuing the warrant is also violating. As James Otis put it 265 years ago, what a scene does this open? I'll conclude tonight by noting 3 undisputable facts. First, tens of thousands of registered voters are currently violating this ordinance. Second, you have no control over how the ordinance will be enforced.
Your
And
time
third,
is up.
There's a city council election every 2 years.
Nina Becotes, Maria Gonzalez, Abdul Bounds, Hannah Walaskowicz,
Good evening, City Council. My name is Hannah. I think I share a lot of frustrations with many people here about the fact that, frankly, it seems like I feel like some of you don't care. You know, we have people out on the street. I drive around the city. Basically, every corner there's an unhoused person there asking for money. And, like, it breaks my heart, the fact that people have to stand on the street corner and do that rather than having a place to call home. The fact that people in the past have said to pick up needles, that there's an apartment building with mold and the garbage chute going up to the 10th floor. And there's all of these problems, and it feels like there are no solutions being had for them, and that the working class here in Rochester is struggling and desperately calling out and reaching and asking you to do something, but nothing is getting done. And yeah, I don't know. My ask is something gets done, that we house our unhoused neighbors, that we fight back against corrupt landlords, and that landlords that live out of the state who have no vested interest here in New York don't get tax breaks. They don't get to siphon off money from the working class here in Rochester. So, yeah, I mean, my ask is just listen to the people, do something about the problems here. And to say, like, we can't do it, look at New York City. New York City is helping the working class there. They're getting problems solved. But we don't have money in the budget. We can't do it up here because we're not New York City. I think it's a lie. We can if we actually work and put the solutions forward. So, yeah.
Yolanda Gavin. Yolanda Gavin will be followed by Ryan Acuff.
Good evening. Thanks for being here. My name's Yolanda Gavin, and I hate to say, but I live in a tenement. And I'm not being dramatic. A tenement is a building that is large and run down. 10 Manhattan Square, or, you know, what you may know as Park Square, it's a tenement. And it wasn't always that way. But thanks to our villain, Mr. William Gilbane in Florida, who Forbes says his family is worth $1 billion. That's B billion. Thanks to him and his greed and his carelessness and his rudeness when we contacted him, we all in my building, our morale is down. We're all depressed. And we have tried. We have used our own cleaning products, our own energy to keep the building up. We've been patient. They tell us, oh, the part's coming from Germany for the elevator. This isn't the turn of the century. You can get a part overnight from Germany. Stop lying to us. It's also very classist. They think that because we're low income, we have low standards, and we do not. Even though I'm not well, me and my neighbors, one in a wheelchair, we decided to pull the weeds in front of our building when Conifer did not. Conifer did make sure that maintenance did landscaping when there was a ribbon cutting and the mayor came. But he didn't see the other parts of the building, us tenants do. That hurts terribly to know that meters away, there's 500-something citations in your building, and nobody cares. But guess what? It took a whole bunch of motley crew of people who knew nothing about landlord law, and we do not give up. We picketed their university site, and I'm here tonight. I'm usually in my pajamas by this time of night. I'm not going to give up. We're not going to give up. Thank you for your time.
Ryan Acuff. Ryan will be followed by Karen Cooter.
Good evening, members of council. I would like to also speak in favor of council passing a law to ending public subsidies to landlords who cannot keep up their existing buildings. If I wanted to go out and buy a vacant lot, or anybody wanted to, you would not be allowed to if you had any code violations in any buildings that you own in the city of Rochester. But somehow you can be a developer or landlord and apply for millions of dollars in property tax exemptions, grants, and loans, and as it is now, the red carpet is rolled out for you. Unfortunately, right now, we are rewarding bad behavior, and it's not a surprise if the bad behavior continues. There are many examples of this, but just to give one, I'll mention Conifer Realty, because they are the largest landlord in Rochester. Of their 15 buildings, complexes in the city, as of today, 8 of them don't have certificate of occupancies. As of Friday next week, that'll be 10, when the 2 St. Michael's certificate of occupancies expire, as they've had open code enforcement cases since 2022 and 2024. And anybody who got one of the handouts, they can see on the back, they can see this is updated from building blocks today. You can see every building, how many violations, when the certificate of occupancy expired for many of these 3-4 years ago. And they were recently given money, tax subsidies to buy Andrews Terrace, to build a new building on Park Square 2. This is an easy fix. We already have this standard for purchasing property. We just need to have this standard for giving contracts, public money, subsidies. This is something City Council can do. They can close the loophole to say, if you want future money, fix up your existing buildings. Thank you.
Karen Cooter.
My name is Karen Cooter. I also live.
Excuse me, can you bend the microphone down so? Thank you.
I also live at Park Square. The day that all of our elevators went out, I had to bring my dog downstairs and take him out after he ate his dinner. I found out the elevators were down. So I started down the stairs. I live on the 7th floor, and I'm not really steady on my legs. About the 5th floor, I fell and slid down about 6 steps because the steps were so dirty and greasy. I also could only see out of one eye, and they have no markings on the edge of the steps to see where they are. And I know there's other people that are blind or near blind in the building, and it's a safety hazard. They also, Conifer, took my rent out twice last month. And when I asked for it back, I was told, we don't give refunds. We leave it in your account. That overdrew my account for the month. I had no money for the month. 3 weeks later, they gave me a check to replace that money. But I couldn't get my dog more dog food. I had to borrow money to do things like that. It's just, and they don't care. They don't care at all. I was in there every day for those 3 weeks. And it was like, it was nothing to them. I don't know what else to do to help this building. I've been in this tenants union, and, we're doing a lot as it is. But you can't get blood from a stone. And William Gilbane is, sorry, thank you very much.
Kevin Yost. Kevin Yost. Madeline King. Yost. Kevin Yost.
Kevin Yost, 1474 Meadow Road in Henrietta. Good evening. We all, whether you live in the suburbs of the city, have an interest in downtown and its parks and amenities. That's the hub of the region. A few months ago, I spoke, before I got cut off from time, about the need to keep the Sherlock Street Park and the other parallel streets up to Anderson Park to put the apartment housing or whatever, and to have a spine of downtown parks in the middle of the city and then along the river. I'd like to see, I don't know what the state health codes are, but walk through splash parks and Parcel 5, named Daniel Prude Park, or Anderson Park, which would be named Dr. David Anderson Park, and Troop Street Playground, which would be Troop Street Canal Park, and William G. Pomeroy Foundation Historical Marker marking the Genesee Valley Canal, and use that same entity to replace the one on West Main Street, and getting rid of Broad Street would be disastrous because you still need the east-west streets in addition to Main Street, and just have the canal under the street and drain out under ESL Ballpark and on down Triphammer Forge, round lock at Genesee Valley Crossroads Park, and then have the interloop a boulevard. North Boulevard, just keep it above ground, the river, State Street, and reconnected Front Street, Browns Park, and Commercial Street. Thank you.
Madeline King. Amy D'Amico.
Good evening. A speaker tonight asked you to honor open meetings and notification laws regarding zoning. Citizen Action advocates proposed legislation regarding organizations who own unsafe housing being denied public funding. So my question is, who should vote on these issues and who should not? This is not an indictment of any of you. It is just an apparent conflict of interest for a lot of you to decide on these matters. Here's what I found on property development and landlord connections in your day jobs. President Melendez works at Ibero American Development Corporation, which does affordable housing development. Councilmember Harris, South District Vice President, is a licensed real estate agent, still active with Berkshire Hathaway Home Service Discovery Real Estate, and maintains her real estate license. Councilmember Leslie Smith is Executive Director of Connected Communities, a nonprofit community quarterback whose work centers on mixed income housing development. Councilmember Patterson, LinkedIn activity references work tied to the Community Preservation Corporation.
We pause time for just one moment. So part of our rules, and we say this in the beginning, is that we're not to address individual council members. We're addressing the body.
I'm
so
just
if you would
summarizing, but I'm trying not to address any of you directly, even though I'm using your names. I'm just distinguishing.
That is addressing us directly, but that's okay.
Who I think could vote and who has a conflict of interest. So you all know what your day jobs are. And now some people know what some of your day jobs are. I was hoping to summarize everybody very briefly. And some of them with real estate or landlord ties seem to present an apparent conflict of interest, which I hope all of you will consider on voting on these matters. Respectfully, thank you.
Yalitza Vargas. Brent Merritt.
Good evening, council members. I'm Brent Merritt. I'm also here.
Pull the mic up, yep.
Good evening, council members. I'm Brent Merritt, and I'm also here. I'd like you to consider the no repairs, no public funding legislation. I also live at 10 Manhattan Square, which is a Conifer building. You've heard a lot about it so far. There's been a lot of issues. We've been forced to live in pretty much inhumane conditions. I suffered an injury when the elevator malfunctioned. We've had garbage, rodent issues, and when we try to get these situations addressed, we were really treated less than human. So I think that if this no repairs, no public funding thing could go through, that would force a lot of accountability, because they built a new building right next to us, which was pretty much a slap in the face to us when we're living in the conditions that we are. So you've heard a lot about it. I don't need to keep going over and over it. But that's something I would really love for you to consider. So please consider the no repairs, no public funding bill. Thank you.
Albert Algarin.
My name is Albert Algarin, and representing the Business Association. Tonight I want to acknowledge this 14-year-old little girl that was killed in our streets, as well as another young lady that was killed also in the street by violence of weapon after the Puerto Rican festival. I'm not here to point out that it's the festival problem. I'm not here to point out that it's a city problem or council problem, but it's all our problems. And what I'm telling you tonight, I don't know waste your heart, but if you're elected to take action in areas like this. You cannot sweep this under the table and wait for next year to come again and something happens again. Because that's what's been happening for years and years and years. And like I said, sooner or later, somebody's going to get killed. And it has happened. Folks, you are responsible for what happens in the city. And our city is really having some real violent problems. And you all need to sit down, and you all need to seriously think about the city's coming and seriously find out the solution to these problems. You cannot walk it like you walk your dog. You got to come with a solution. You got to come with the problem, because these are people who, it's just sad that this 14-year-old little girl is not here, no longer with us. And if I'm sitting in that chair, I would not sleep. I'm going to tell you the truth. I would not sleep if I'm a council person until I come up with a solution of how do we stop the crime in the city. Enough is enough. Let's get the job done.
Tammy Vinci, Frederick Stoss, Sarah Shapley, Gina Wolks, Cynthia Robinson, Nina Becoats, Maria Gonzalez, Abdul Bounds, Natalie King, and Yalitza Vargas.
All right, thank you, everyone. This concludes our Speak to Council session for tonight. The next regular council meeting will be on Tuesday, August 25th, here in Council Chambers at 6 p.m. Have a good night. It is August. Council meeting.